Follow-up question from Tim. He's the one who asked last week about fasting. Kind of, dealing with brain fog and I guess disillusionment and so forth. Nobody knows anything about what that's like. But the concern is I don't know what I should be doing with my life right now. What would be a good, I guess, biblical starting point for him?
So when I'm counseling people who ask me this question, I try to break down goals into 3 different categories. I talk about there are character goals, there are spiritual goals, and then there are life goals, right? And usually the life goals include relational goals, and all of them are very important. So spiritual goals are the ones that the Bible tells us about. These are the things that we can and ought to be shooting for. So do you have goals? Like if you're wondering, I don't know what I'm doing with my life right now. Okay, let's think about your spiritual goals. Do you have any aspirations for getting closer to God? Do you have any aspirations to knowing God more? What are you doing to accomplish those goals, right? So you're saying things like, well, I'm going to commit myself to trying to get into the Bible at least once a day. I want to commit myself to spending time praying with God at least once or twice a day. I want to commit myself to being a part of a good, godly congregation. I want to be a part of a church community that's going to build me up in my ability to know God. Are there known areas of sin inside of your life that you're fighting at this moment? Do you have accountability? Do you have areas where people are helping you out and communicating with you about better ways to fight these particular sins? Right. Those are just some examples of spiritual goals that would be good for you to have. And every single one that I just gave you, I could give you biblical references to suggest that this is what God would be wanting us to do. And by the way, when the Bible is talking about these types of goals and purposes for life, it actually does communicate that these are the main ones that matter, right? These are the will of God for our life. So a good example of this is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. This is verse 1. Finally then, brethren, we urge and exhort in the Lord Jesus that you should abound more and more, just as you receive from us how you ought to walk to please God. For you know what commandments we gave you through the Lord Jesus. For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you should abstain from sexual immorality, that each of you should know how to possess his own vessel in sanctification and honor. So what is the will of God for your life? That you know him more and more, and that you learn how to possess your vessel, which is another word for body, in a way that honors God, right? So that your behavior reflects the commands and the will and the ethics of God, which leads into the next thing. So once you're thinking about that, how am I accomplishing these goals? And it feeds into these other things. Well, what are the main commandments of God? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, so do you have any relational goals, right? How are your relationships doing? Start with your family. Do you have good relationships with your family in general or bad relationships with your family? Are you working on those, right? So do you have a lot of issues with your parents? Do you have a lot of issues with your brothers and your sisters? Do you have a lot of issues with your aunts and your uncles, right? What kind of family do you have in your world? Do you have kids? Do you have good relationships with them? If they're bad, ask yourself the question of what am I doing to remedy them? As long as it is up to you, live at peace with all men. That's what the Apostle Paul writes to us. Doesn't mean it's always up to us. Sometimes people are engaging in egregious behavior that we can't reconcile with. But what kind of relationships do you have right now? Are you working on them? Are you pursuing them in a way that could honor God and honor his word and ethics that he gives to us? After relational goals, you may want to think, am I aspiring to any type of relationship? So this might be romantic. You might say, well, I'm a single person. I'm aspiring to be married one day, right? I would really like to be married one day. If that's the case, then you should be asking yourself the question of what kind of a partner am I looking for? What are the qualities that would be good for me, amenable to me? What faith would it look like? What type of personality would be good for me? Am I willing to work on various things? And then that leads into the main question, which is character goals. What kind of character goals do you have for yourself? Are you becoming the kind of person that can make relationships work, or are you becoming the kind of person that is ruining relationships, right? Someone who's bombing their relationships because you struggle with dishonesty, or you struggle with temperance, right? You can't really hold your temper together. You're all over the place. You're really impulsive. Are you the kind of person who struggles a lot with anger issues? Do you struggle a lot with anxiety, and do you project your anxiety onto other people? Do you struggle with assertiveness? Is it difficult for you to tell people people what your needs are in a really clear and concise way, or do you subtly hint at them in order to make people feel uncomfortable, right? So these are just various examples, right? What kind of a character do you have, and is it conducive to positive relationships? Are you working on these things, right? Are you working on these things? And that could even lead into various career-oriented goals. What kind of job do you have right now? Do you enjoy your job? Why or why not? Right? Do you have any financial goals, right? Do you have any goals for or aspirations towards promotion within your particular job or your career field? Do you have trades that you want to learn how to do? Are there various hobbies that you want to pick up or learn how to do in greater propensity, right? These are questions that you should be asking yourself if you feel lost and if you feel like you're inside of some sort of a tunnel and you don't know how to get out of it. Also ask yourself this question: what are the negative things inside of my life that I recognize as problems, and am I working on those? Again, do you struggle with anxiety? Do you struggle with loneliness? Do you struggle with fears? Do you struggle with worries? Do you struggle with indecisiveness, right? Whatever things that you have as issues, once again, are you working through those things? Are you finding a lot of resources in your life to help you work through those things? And this is why I always encourage people, write. Try to find time to write these things down, because it helps organize and articulate your thoughts in a way that other people can understand. If these things are just happening within your own head, it's very difficult to keep and to hold fast to goals, because sometimes you forget what your goals were, right? Put them down on paper, understand what they are. And again, write underneath them, what am I doing to accomplish these goals? And understand, once again, that all these goals and aspirations, they're going to come with a lot of failure. They're going to come with a lot of difficulties and frustrations. But are you learning perseverance to overcome those frustrations and to do better as you move forward, right? The more you articulate yourself on paper, the more you talk to people about what your goals are and ask them to hold you accountable, the better you're going to do moving forward. So that should give you hopefully a good foundation for what do you do when you feel a little bit aimless in your pursuits. Get an idea of all these things, organize yourself in the right way, and hopefully when you move forward, you'll understand it better.